Now, I've got no conflicts relevant to this talk. And we're going to talk about the cause of arthritis, the anatomy and kinematics of the DRUJ, treatment options, and at the end, the Vaughan-Jackson syndrome, which is a slightly different concept. Now, what about the causes of arthritis? Why does the DRUJ get arthritis? Well, most commonly, it's probably primary osteoarthritis. It just happens. Very rarely, it can be after an infection. We've seen that where people have put K-wires, for example, across the DRUJ and they become infected. Rheumatoid will destroy the DRUJ. Quite a common cause for those with trauma practices is incongruity. A distal radius malunion or an ulnar neck malunion can cause the sigmoid notch to abrade. If the DRUJ is unstable, then that can certainly cause arthritis. And if you have a fracture disrupting the ulnar head or the sigmoid notch, then of course over the years that may become arthritic as well. Here's an iatrogenic one where someone did a rather enthusiastic Feldman's wafer, which obviously loaded up this joint here. It became arthritic and did well with an ulnar head replacement. An unstable DRUJ flopping up and down over the years, abrading the sigmoid notch. And here is an ulnar fracture that was plated in tilt, and that tilted fixation has caused the joint to be incongruous, and it's become arthritic. Now, what about the anatomy and kinematics of the DRUJ? This is important. The radius hangs from the ulnar. The ulnar is a fixed bone. It's fixed to the elbow, and it's the ulnar which is the stable component of the forearm. Everybody thinks that the radius is the important bone because it's got the carpus and fingers at the end of it, but no, it's the ulnar. The radius just hangs off the ulnar like a monkey hangs off a solid branch. It's a quadrilateral joint. And just like a polo mint, you can't break a polo mint in just one point. You can't cut the quadrilateral forearm joint and expect to get away with it. If you take off the ulnar head for arthritis, that's not nice. If you learn anything from this lecture, it is please avoid decapitating the ulnar head. There's usually a way to avoid it. Why not? Well, this is a picture from Vivian Lee's, and you can see if you load, the ulnar is the solid bone, but the radius relies on that ulnar to carry the load when you're gripping something in your hand. And if you take off the ulnar head, like here, you can see under load how the radius then clangs against the ulnar. People say it's an unstable ulnar. It's not really. There's nothing wrong with the ulnar until someone chopped it off. It's the radius that's unstable around the ulnar. But this is what happens. It impinges. What are the treatment options if you have DRUJ arthritis? Well, first of all, do what you always do. Non-operative treatment. Part of our jobs as orthopaedic surgeons or hand surgeons is to make sure patients, whenever possible, can adapt, cope and accept. It's okay to have a bit of pain. It's okay to have some functional difficulty. We mustn't be rushing into big destructive surgery. Does hand therapy help? Well, I don't know. Splinting, if you splint the rotating joint, you lose that rotating function of your forearm. Painkillers, of course, can help. Steroids can be very useful, at least for a while. But if this doesn't work, that leaves us with salvage surgery. And salvage means what it means. It's a destructive thing. So before we go there, let's just think about neurectomy. Now, neurectomy is becoming more and more popular. This is the most recent meta-analysis from 2021, showing that by and large, this is a successful procedure in terms of patient satisfaction and pain relief. Now, I'm not aware of any papers particularly on the DRUJ, but in principle, denervation of the DRUJ might be something to consider before you do some hideously destructive excision type procedure. Now, as it happens, I did one of these several months ago on a chap who is 60. He's got very painful DRUJ arthritis. He's had steroid injections, painkillers. He wears a splint, and he still wants to exercise. He still wants to do press-ups. He's actually going to Nepal to go to base camp in the autumn. And I did a denervation on him because I didn't dare do anything destructive because that really would have spoiled his ambitions. And so far, so good. His pain is significantly reduced. Who knows how long it will last, but we have avoided destruction. What about these salvage operations? Well, we'll look first of all at radioulnar fusion. Or let's not look at radioulnar fusion. This is a dreadful, dreadful operation. Hopefully, you'll never ever have to do it. If you have a failed Darax that cannot be retrieved, a failed Sovik-Apanji, or some chronic instability, then until recently, this was the only ultimate salvage. It's got a very high complication rate, hard to get the bone to heal. And the other problem you have is what position do you fuse the forearm in? If you fuse it face upwards, then that lady on the left could never be a typist. If you fuse it face downwards, then that chap on the right could never be a silver service waiter. There's no ideal position to fuse the forearm. Now, fortunately, this operation is likely to become just about obsolete with the onset of the Shecker implant, which we'll come to later. Excision arthroplasty, well, Darac and Sovik-Apanji are the two eponymous names most known. I have put Frankenstein's monster's head there for a good reason, because these are, or can be, monstrous operations if you do them in the wrong people. There's actually various procedures. They've all got various people's names on them, but they all involve destroying that quadrilateral joint of the forearm. Now, a Darac, by and large, is a good operation for bad rheumatoid, a good operation if your ambition is to hold a cup of tea. But if you do it in younger people, trauma, it's not a good operation. Time and time again, the literature have shown many, many years ago that Darax is not a good operation for anyone but the lightest of use. I still see people who've had a Darac, and these now end up quite rightly in the law courts if it's done on a younger person without absolutely good cause. The Sovik-Apanji, well, some surgeons think it's great. Some patients do well. But there's no doubt you destroy the stability of the forearm, and in fact, you're taking any residual instability that was around the ulnar head away completely by doing this excision across the neck. There are usually better options. If you really think it through, there's usually an osteotomy or a soft tissue reconstruct. There's something you can think about rather than this operation. And salvage, at least until the Shecker recently, is difficult. And here's a very recent paper, 2021, again pointing out that the Sovik-Apanji is not a reliable procedure for a substantial proportion of people. Do it at your peril. And never ever do it for instability. If you have arthritis or pain secondary to instability, and you do a Sovik-Apanji, well, you really will have an unstable forearm. It's a really stupid thing to do. Those scenes at the bottom, by the way, are from Zoolander, the petrol station scene, extremely funny, and shows what happens if you do extremely stupid things. About replacement, you can do a hemi or a total. We'll look at hemi first of all. Now, the history of the hemi, well, it all started off with a silicon ulnar head, but these have poor resistance to compression, minimal anatomical support. In fact, they were withdrawn nearly 30 years ago. So this brought us to anatomical designs. And if you can restore the normal forearm kinematics by replacing like with like the ulnar head, then, at least in the laboratory, you get a good outcome. And this has led to various implants which have come onto the market. One or two have been withdrawn, and they're all pretty expensive. But do they work? Well, let's look at the indications for this. If you've got arthritis DRUJ that's stable, the hemiarthroplasty works. You don't have to replace both sides of the joint. An ulnar head malunion, an unstable Darac or similar deletion. So this arthritis I showed you before from a Feldman's wafer. This was arthritis secondary to an ulnar head malunion. It'd be really difficult to do an osteotomy, and yet really very simple to do a hemiarthroplasty. There are contraindications to this. For example, if you have an unstable ulnar head with arthritis, well, there's no point putting a hemiarthroplasty into an unstable arthritic head because your implant would become unstable. This is where the Shecker again comes in to solve what used to be a really difficult problem. Well, the results were Greg Giddens did a meta-analysis 4 years ago now and showed pretty good survivorship at 45 months, a pretty low complication rate. Now, that survivorship is only less than 4 years. It's not really good enough, but nevertheless, they're encouraging results. We published our results nearly nearly 9 years ago now, actually. It'd be time to do the really long-term results, which is a project in my mind. We did it for lots of different indications, rheumatoid, osteoarthritis, failed deletions, and so on. We did quite a few concomitant procedures. You can put an ulnar head hemi if you've got arthritis at the same time as a wrist replacement, if you've got the same time as radiolunate arthritis. Our outcomes were good. Pain was low, DASH was pretty good, and the great majority, 47, would have the procedure done again, which probably is about the best prom you can get. Of course, we had complications. Never believe a surgeon who says he doesn't get complications. You can see there, there's an unstable joint. There's one that had a periprosthetic sterile fracture, and one who had aseptic loosening over the years, which we managed to do impaction grafting, and we had another one who had an infected loosening that needed a 2-stage procedure. But of course, we had complications. The big question, I suppose, is does the ulnar head erode like this glacier here? Huge load against a soft background. This is the key question. Well, we've looked at some of ours. Here's a gap of 6 years with no erosion. Here's another one put in 2010. There's been no erosion, still doing well. We've had 5 cases of erosion, back in 2013 at least. In fact, at that time they're asymptomatic, but one of them's now come out of the woodwork, and I revised this, I'll show you later, in 2021. Now, how do you do a hemiarthroplasty? Well, here's the workshop manual for you. The surgical approach is important. You have to go over the back, and over the back is the dorsal branch of the ulnar nerve. Beware, you can cripple someone's life if you damage that nerve. Take huge care not to damage it, please. You incise the retinaculum over EDM, just here. That's the way into the DRUJ, is through the base of EDM. So you go through the retinaculum, there's EDM pulled out the way, and you mark out the capsule, being very careful distally to preserve the dorsal component of the TFCC. You don't want your implant to become unstable, do you? Cut off the head with a saw, put in a couple of bone levers, ream up and down with the various reamers, choose your trial, put in a trial. If it fits, you end up putting in the implant. There's a trial head, different sizes. And there we are, trying out the head, making sure it fits, making sure it's stable, making sure we can close the retinaculum. Take an X-ray. When you repair it, ECU, it's easy to get ECU in the repair, so just be careful that ECU isn't caught up in your sutures. And there you are. Now, DRUJ arthritis, there's a special thing, it's not that uncommon actually, where you see radiolunate arthritis and ulnocarpal impaction and DRUJ arthritis all at the same time. And this isn't uncommon. And there's a really neat technique you can use. So you take out the ulnar head and then you put one of these precision bone grafting devices, reaming, up through the vacant ulnar head space into the sigmoid notch and the lunate. And then you can pack that hole with graft taken from the ulnar head, and then through a small mini incision, put in either a cannulated compression screw, or you can use staples. But this is very effective. And just to remind you that radiolunate fusion is the forgotten fusion in the wrist. They always do better than you think. Here we are, this is this patient here, full rotation. Good radial and ulnar tilt despite a radiolunate fusion. And even more impressively, good flexion extension despite that radiolunate fusion. And so don't forget the radiolunate fusion for those who deserve it or earn it. Now, how do you revise a hemiarthroplasty? You know, as a basic surgical rule, anywhere in what we do as hand surgeons, always think about plan B. Always have a second option if the first option fails. And if an ulnar head hemi fails, we can now revise this to a Shecker. So here's the two-stage revision technique for you. So extend the original incision, watch that nerve. You take off the head, it's modular. Now the ulnar shaft won't come out unless it's loose, and it usually isn't loose. So you can take a saw, and vibrating the saw longitudinally, you can cleave open with an osteotome the ulnar shaft. It will just split open enough for you to break the bond between the implant and the bone. And you can knock out the stem and then put 2 Vicryl sutures around the stem to close the gap. And then I'd leave that for a few weeks to let the bone settle down. And then 6 to 8 weeks later, you just need to use the distal part of the stem, the incision, and here you are replacing it with a Shecker. Here's an example I did just a few months ago. This is someone who'd had a previous very, very short Darax, which had been treated on the left with this ulnar hemi to try and stabilize it, but it didn't really work. You can see there's a big loop of tendon where that Mitec anchor is. So we took it out, and there you are with the Shecker. And this lady had, I think, something like 12 operations, and she, the following week, told us for the first time in 20 years her arm felt normal. So there is the total replacement. Is a salvage option for the DRUJ, particularly if it's unstable. If you have an unstable DRUJ with arthritis, this is the only solution. And there are other indications as well. There are contraindications. Of course, if you do other things, for example, an unstable ulnar head without arthritis, we'll think about ligament reconstruction. A hemiarthritis is perfectly adequate for a stable osteoarthritic DRUJ. Keep the Shecker for backup. What about young people with arthritis? This is difficult. Of course, you could put it in, but will it wear out? I suppose it should do. But then again, Andy Murray played tennis in the Australian Open pretty well this time round. He's had a hip replacement a few years ago. So we don't know really. We need longer term follow-up. But for the time being, at least, we have to be cautious. Limit the load. But it does feel good, and people might get too confident. So here it is, quite sophisticated, but quite simple in a way. A simple polythene ball that I don't think wears out. A stem that goes up and down because your forearm changes with rotation, and this bolts across the top to stabilize your rotating joint. Here's what I've done here. You can see that there's the implant just before we close up. The meta-analysis, again, by Greg Giddins, same paper, but this time it's the Sheckers, and pretty good survival at 56 months. But again, we need longer term follow-up. We've done quite a few in Southampton. This was a project about 3 years ago. We've done more now. The average had 5.5 procedures before my Sheckers. One of them had 12, the one I showed you earlier. And all these DRUJs, at least, replacements were performed by me. Patient satisfaction, pretty good in the short term. We had one really painful, and we still don't know why. We looked for everything, couldn't find it, and had to take it out. And that left a problem. What the hell do you do once you've taken it out to give you a painless but stable forearm? Now we'll finish with the Vaughan-Jackson syndrome. This is a condition in which the tendons are lacerated by a sharp ulnar head with arthritis. You can see here. And you can see here's a patient who has got a drooped tendons. Now, the treatment for this, in my books at least, is that I would gently round off the ulnar head, not excise of it, round it off smoothly, and then try and reconstruct the capsule. If you round off enough, but not too much, you can repair the capsule often with some Ethibond sutures, but if not, a patch of extensor retinaculum will do very nicely. You may have to replace the ulnar head if there's instability, but if not, you just round off the head, and then you need to transfer or graft the tendons. So here we are, really sharp edge, lifting back the retinaculum, and just using a saw just to brush off the head, just to round off the head, not excising it, just brushing it off and rounding it off. A retinacular patch you can see here, some sort of tendon transfer, and these patients can get pretty good. Of course they're not perfect, but pretty good results in most, but of course not all cases. So there you are. Thank you all for listening. The management of the arthritic DRUJ. I hope you've learned something. Remember that quadrilateral forearm. Do not chop out or mess around with the ulnar head unless you absolutely have to. We talked about ulnar head hemiarthroplasty. We talked about the Shecker. I hope you learned something, and of course there'll be time for questions. Thank you all very much indeed.